everyone, it's Dr. Leola here, and this is probably the last video that I'm going to be doing for this semester. So this is just to go over the final project that you'll be doing in this class. We won't be having a final exam or a final paper per se. Instead, you'll be completing a project, as with most DCD classes. So in this video, I'm just going to talk through my expectations for that project. Now, as with all of the assignment videos, you can access everything that I'm saying here in the assignment sheet. So you can download that from the assignment portal on Moodle. And as with everything, you're always welcome to reach out to me for any further clarifications, any questions, anything at all related to the assignment or to the course in general. So, okay, we'll go on and get started. So for your final project, the goal here is to revisit one of the prototypes that you've worked on this semester. So you've done 4 different prototypes. So to revisit one of those prototypes and basically expand it so that it's much closer to completion, if not fully at completion. So this expansion and this revision should follow the feedback that you've received from me and from your peers over the course of the semester. And it should also kind of demonstrate a semester's worth of interactive methods and thinking about interactive design and immersive design and so on. So as you all know, you've done 4 prototypes, right, for this semester. You did a hypertext, a parser fiction, a geolocative narrative, and then an augmented reality prototype. And each of these are probably at varying stages of completion in terms of like a final vision. None of them, however, are fully complete, both due to breadth limitations that I set you for the prototypes, technology limitations, and in some cases both. So for your final project, as I said, you'll pick one of these prototypes and basically develop it towards completion, following my feedback, the feedback you got in playtesting, and then whatever plans you articulated in your designer statements about what you would do if given more time and more resources to expand it. So one of the things that makes this a little bit challenging as an assignment is that I can't really give you all like concrete things that you have to do for each prototype, because it really depends on what you did to start and what you're able to do over the next couple of weeks to expand it further. So, but that said, I do want to just give you a few kind of suggestions of things that you could do if you're not really sure where to start for any given prototype. So first, for the hypertext, this of course was built in Twine. And so a place to start for kind of everyone, besides my feedback, of course, is to first kind of expand the technical and multimedia capabilities of the piece to enhance postmodern experimentation and also to enhance immersiveness within the narrative. So for the hypertext, we really hadn't been speaking much about immersion and how to create immersive environments. So that's something that you can immediately bring to that, is just to add more to that environment to make it more immersive, following kind of what we've been studying in other units. Technically, this is one where you should look into what Twine can do, right? So it can hold variables, it can create data saving structures, right? There's all kinds of things that Twine can do that this would be kind of the time to start exploring some of that more fully. So that's one way you can expand your hypertext, generally speaking, right? Of course, go to your feedback, go to your actual narrative, and that'll kind of be a more specific direction. For the parser, some things you could do if you're interested in revisiting that one are create additional rooms, create additional objects, maybe even build out some conversations with characters. You might also explore ways to create logic within the fiction. So for instance, Boolean style logics like if this happens, then do this, otherwise do this. You could add design elements, for instance, that clarify what things can or can't be interacted with. You could enhance some of the error prevention for that. Just build out that story further, right? There's lots you could do in the parser. For the geolocative story, you can expand, you can keep it kind of map-based in Google Tour Builder. That's perfectly valid choice. And for this, you might want to use a more precise and specific use of Street View and multimedia to really kind of create a more locally spaced-based story. Or, of course, since this is the one that was your first kind of like truly prototyping outside of the final version of the project, you could explore moving what you've already built from Tour Builder into a mobile environment like Eris, or another program if you don't have an iOS device. And then finally, for the augmented reality unit, you could first, kind of like if you did the paper prototype, you could try moving that into an augmented reality environment using something like Unity or Spark AR or something else. You could start kind of creating triggers and assets to actually try to host that in a real augmented reality environment. You could simply expand the paper prototype to tell a more complete narrative, and enhance the fidelity of that, so making it as high fidelity as possible. If you did the Instagram face filter, you could create a suite of face filters that all kind of work together, like maybe a group of characters. Or you could just really kind of expand and tighten and improve the current filter that you did. And if you did the between page and screen option, that's probably one where simply writing more into that narrative might be your best bet. But certainly you could also add to perhaps some paper elements to imagine different QR code augmented reality possibilities. So the AR one is a little bit funky for expanding. I think the other three, it's a little bit clearer how you could grow from those, though certainly you can visit the AR if you would like to. So based on the variable nature of this assignment, as I kind of said, there's not any really hard and fast technical requirements in terms of like breadth or quantity that you have to hit. But some things that I will be looking for and that you should keep in mind as you expand is that first, the text should be significantly more complete than the prototype. So in some cases, this may mean that your narrative is done, right? Like it's ready to go into your senior design portfolio. It's ready to go out into the world as a playable narrative, right? Whatever. In other cases, and this is probably the more likely scenario, it's just going to be closer to being done than the prototype is, right? So it'll be a little bit more tightly designed, a little bit more expansive in the narrative, right? A little bit more just like more done, right? Then there should also be a demonstrable expansion both in the narrative itself, so the storytelling, so plot, characters, settings, whatever, and also an expansion in the technical work. And by this I mean not just like if you're working with something like Twine, not just adding more Lexia and more links and more GIFs or whatever, because we all kind of know how to do that, right? But instead, doing a little bit more technical things that perhaps you didn't figure out the first time around. So creating variables, maybe creating a countdown, creating a scorecard, adding some more like Boolean logic phrases, right? Any number of things that kind of get you working in that code a little bit more robustly. Just to take one example. So there should be a technical expansion and a narrative expansion. Then one kind of continued thing we've been focusing on this semester, besides just interaction and immersion as such, is usability. So there should also be really clear attention to usability and to creating a usable design according to the heuristics that we've been visiting throughout this semester. So again, if your design didn't really consider that to begin with, that's a great thing to kind of revisit with those heuristics in mind and really kind of think about, okay, how does this design maintain the visibility of the system status? How does it work on error prevention? How does it match between the system and the real world, right? And so on. Okay, so the three technical requirements, again, significantly more complete narrative and text as such, closer to done, as close to done as you can get it. Demonstrable expansion in narrative content and technical skill set and technical work. And then a clear attention to usability according to the heuristics we've been studying throughout the semester. There will be no playtesting for this final. We're kind of out of the playtesting zone at this stage, so now you should have some good playtesting information for each of your prototypes, so just use what you have to build this one out. But you will do a more expansive designer statement to reflect this revision. So your designer statement, as usual, should address creative and critical goals for the project, what specifically you expanded on from your earlier prototype, and how your design takes into account different forms of feedback that you may have received. You should talk about how your project is usable, so how it deals with usability concerns, usability heuristics. It should talk about how your project reflects the major concerns of this class in terms of immersion and interaction design. And then finally, as usual, how would you enhance or expand the project if you had even more time and even more resources? So if it's not ready to go out into the world, what more does it need before it can go into the world? Okay. This is going to be a longer designer statement than your previous one, so you should expect to write between 750 and 1,000 words, really kind of getting into this design process and the design goals that you have here with this project. Okay, so for submitting, you're going to submit this to the final project assignment portal on Moodle, and you're going to follow the same guidelines that the original prototype had. So go back to that original assignment sheet, and whatever you had to do to submit it there, that's how you should submit it this time. And as usual, designer statements should be PDFs. Okay, this is all due Friday, May 8th at 11:59 p.m. And I want to stress that this is the latest that I can possibly accept work because my grades are due 72 hours after that moment. So I really don't have any additional time. But what this does mean, though, this is the last date, but of course there's always kind of shades of gray to some of this. So if it's like Saturday, 2 a.m., right? I am not going to start grading at like midnight on Friday. Okay, if it's 2 a.m. on Saturday and like you just can't get Moodle to work, or it's 11:57 and Moodle's being slow or whatever, excuse me, if any of that's going on, please don't freak out, right? I will accept it. The goal here is for it to be there Saturday morning when I do sit down to start grading, which is going to be like 9 or 10 a.m. realistically. Okay, so it's 11:59 because I have to give like a concrete date, but for your own kind of human peace of mind and so on, really Friday night before Saturday morning will be fine. Okay, and then as usual, if there's any kind of extenuating circumstances where this isn't going to work, please get in touch with me and we will figure something out for getting you through this class. And then according to the syllabus, this final project is 20% of your final grade. So it does kind of take a hefty chunk of that final grade. And you will be assessed according to the following. So first, I'll be looking that the content has been expanded. So there's a significant expansion in the narrative, right? There's more plot development, characters, settings, dialogue, whatever. These are going to be different based on the specific narrative characteristics of the story you're telling, but I'll be looking for that. I'll be looking to see that the length and breadth of the narrative is significantly expanded, so there's just more narrative there, so not just richer, but also more of it. And then it's expanded in a way that clearly responds to the feedback that you've received from me and or your peers. Technically, I'll be looking to see that it doesn't just use more technology, but that it is more advanced work with the given technology. So again, thinking about something like Twine or even Inform, if you've not given any kind of, so looking at something like Inform 7 for your parser, if you didn't do any work to give like narrative specific responses from the system, for instance, the standard response of like, you can't see anything here. If you could go in and kind of change that, right? Because that's going to be an additional advanced piece of code work that was maybe not in the original prototype, but that would be something that I might be looking for, or that would work for this kind of technical expansion when I say code work beyond the prototype, right? And looking for kind of a little bit more computational sophistication. And then also that the technical work itself is consistent, it's accurate, so it works. And it's improved according to feedback from peers and from me. And then finally, the designer statement, as usual, will be assessed in that it responds to all the topical points, that it is carefully and critically reflective of the work that you've done on this project, and that it has like standards of written English, so grammar, syntax, capitalization, other mechanics. You've used paragraphs, there's a heading, right, page numbers, all that good stuff, right? Make this look like a real document, please. All right. So that does it. That gets us kind of through the final project. It gets us through the class. You have 2 weeks to kind of work on this, to revisit something and just, develop it a bit further. I am here for email or Teams consultation or anything else. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And since I probably won't see you all for the end of the semester, thank you all for the great semester. I hope that you've learned some things and had made some cool stuff, and that you're kind of pleased with what you've developed so far. And I hope to see many of you in the fall, maybe in other classes or even just around DCD. So have a great summer, everyone. Please stay safe. Continue to take care of yourselves. And thank you for all of your flexibility and resilience this semester. You've all done fantastic work, and it's been a pleasure teaching 304 with you all this semester. So thanks so much.